Baker looks into the bold and the beautiful, a case in which Ivy killed Daphne to hide the truth. Ivy had spent months trying to hide a truth that Daphne had just uncovered, evidence of a scandal that could destroy her reputation, shatter relationships, and reveal secrets related to previous family betrayals. Earlier that week, Daphne had confronted Ivy and threatened to divulge everything unless Ivy made a public confession. Ivy was completely shaken by the encounter, and ever since, she has been plagued by the fear that her life in Los Angeles might end abruptly. Tension pervaded the design office on the night of the tragedy. After the majority of the employees had left for their homes, Ivy and Daphne were left alone in one of the private showrooms. What started out as a contentious discussion swiftly turned into a furious and desperate altercation. Daphne warned that she had already prepared evidence of Ivy's wrongdoing, and accused her of manipulating everyone around her. Ivy begged for more time, her voice quivering as she insisted that the truth would destroy both herself and innocent people. Daphne, however, would not concede. She said that Ivy's secrets were going to blow up the entire fashion industry, and that the truth always comes out in the end. Ivy's fear became panic at that precise moment. In an attempt to prevent Daphne from leaving the room and revealing everything, she grabbed her arm. It was a short but fierce struggle. Daphne stumbled backward in the confusion, close to the edge of the elevated platform where runway rehearsals take place. Whether intentional or not, a sudden push knocked her to the ground. The empty showroom reverberated with the sickening sound of the fall. Daphne lay motionless on the floor below, and Ivy froze in horror. Ivy was unable to breathe for a few seconds. She hurried downstairs and knelt next to Daphne, repeatedly whispering her name, but she received no answer. Slowly, the truth of what had just transpired started to dawn. Ivy became terrified when she saw how the scene would appear if they were found together. She was reminded of how easily reputations could be ruined in Los Angeles society by flashbacks to previous scandals involving the Forrester family. Ivy made a choice that would follow her forever rather than calling for assistance right away. She moved items around the platform and removed any evidence of the struggle to make the scene appear to be an accident. As she forced herself to think clearly and persuaded herself that this was the only way to safeguard her future, her hands shook. Ivy had already fled, feigning ignorance of the tragedy that was going to rock the fashion industry, by the time security personnel finally found Daphne's body. Employees at Forrester Creations were devastated and perplexed the following morning, when they discovered that Daphne had passed away, following what appeared to be a fatal fall inside the building. Colleagues and family members found it difficult to comprehend how such a horrible accident could have occurred. Determined to determine what had gone wrong, Steffi Forrester promptly ordered a thorough examination of safety procedures and security footage. In the meantime, Ridge and Eric Forrester made an effort to reassure the employees that the business would assist law enforcement. However, as the family expressed their grief, rumors started to spread throughout the fashion house's corridors. A few workers recalled hearing voices raised the previous evening. Others remembered seeing Ivy in the building considerably later than she had stated. These minor discrepancies gradually created the first fissures in the official narrative of a catastrophic accident. The Los Angeles Police Department responded to the scene in a matter of hours, and Detective Baker, a man who had dealt with the Forrester family in numerous prior crises, led the investigation. Baker handled the situation with his customary cool-headed professionalism, closely examining the showroom's design and asking employees about their whereabouts that night. Baker felt that something about the scene did not add up, even though the evidence initially pointed to an unintentional fall. Certain items appeared oddly purposeful, as if someone had made an excessive effort to give the impression that the room was unaltered. Baker made mental notes about the discrepancies while discreetly gathering measurements and photos. He had discovered over the years that complicated rivalries and secrets frequently lurked behind the glitzy exterior of the fashion industry, and he was resolved to find the truth regardless of the influence of those involved. Ivy found it difficult to remain composed as the investigation went on. She felt waves of guilt every time she spoke about Daphne's passing. She made herself show sympathy along with the other employees, but she was always afraid of being discovered. She felt her heart race every time Detective Baker passed through the office hallways, certain that he could somehow see right through her meticulously crafted facade. She wondered if there had been a way to prevent the tragedy as she repeatedly relived the fall at night. Ivy was reminded that the secret she had attempted to conceal could now destroy her regardless by the recollection of Daphne's final warning. However, she kept quiet despite her mounting anxiety, because she thought confessing would only result in shame and imprisonment. In the meantime, Ivy started to take center stage in Detective Baker's investigation. Contrary to her initial claim of leaving early, security logs showed that she had been among the last individuals inside the building that evening. Baker also learned that Daphne had recently gotten in touch with a number of co-workers, claiming to have discovered something startling about Ivy's past. These hints piqued Baker's interest, so he set up a formal interview with Ivy in his office. The meeting was tense but courteous. Ivy maintained that she had left the building long before the accident happened, and insisted that she had no idea what Daphne might have been talking about. Baker listened intently without making any direct accusations, but his inquiries grew more focused. Ivy discovered that the investigation was getting closer to her than she had anticipated when she eventually left the station. As word of the investigation spread among the employees and the Forrester family, tensions increased back at Forrester Creations. As the company was getting ready for a significant international launch, Steffi Forrester started to worry that the scandal might harm its reputation. Ridge insisted that the truth must be revealed regardless of the repercussions, and urged everyone to fully cooperate with the police. Ivy was caught between the secret she was keeping and the people she loved. The pressure mounted every day as Detective Baker discovered new evidence, such as a timeline that no longer matched Ivy's account, a witness who recalled hearing the argument, and an overlooked security camera angle. After a while, Baker went back to the showroom where Daphne had passed away, this time with forensic experts who thoroughly inspected the platform and its surroundings. Subtle indications that a struggle had occurred prior to the fall were found by their analysis. After the discovery, the case changed from being a straightforward accident to a potential homicide investigation. Baker came to the conclusion that Daphne's companion that evening might have attempted to conceal the truth. His focus shifted back to Ivy, whose tense demeanor and erratic schedule now seemed much more suspicious. The detective was aware that more than circumstantial evidence would be needed to establish guilt, but he also thought the truth was hidden beneath the surface. Ivy's emotional turmoil became unavoidable as the days went by. Her friends became aware of her increasing anxiety and insomnia, but she dismissed their worries with fake smiles. But inside, she had the impression that the walls were closing in on her. A psychological burden that threatened to shatter Daphne's resolve was brought on by her guilt over what had happened to her, and her ongoing fear of being arrested. At the same time, everything continued to be threatened by the secret Daphne had uncovered, the very truth Ivy had been frantically trying to hide. Beyond the sadness of Daphne's passing, the scandal would blow up if Baker discovered it. Detective Baker's discovery of a piece of previously unnoticed security footage that showed Ivy entering the showroom just before Daphne fell was the pivotal moment. The video made it abundantly evident that Ivy had been in the building at the crucial moment, even though it did not show the actual altercation. Equipped with this proof, Baker readied himself for another interview, certain that the pressure would eventually compel Ivy to disclose the truth. Ivy realized that the moment she had been dreading was finally coming, when she got the call asking her to come to the police station. The meticulously crafted narrative she had been depending on for days was starting to fall apart. In typical Bold and the Beautiful fashion, the investigation now threatened to destroy relationships, reveal ulterior motives, and force Ivy to make a decision that would change her life. Would the burden of guilt force her to admit the truth about Daphne's death? Or would she keep denying her involvement and hope the evidence remained ambiguous? The glamorous world of Forrester Creations was on the verge of yet another devastating scandal, one that could permanently alter Ivy Forrester's life, and leave the entire Forrester family wondering how far someone would go to keep a secret, as Detective Baker closed in on the last pieces of the puzzle. Over the years, Baker had been involved in numerous investigations pertaining to the Forrester family, and he was aware that appearances could frequently be deceiving in their world. Darker truths could be concealed by wealth, power, and skillfully constructed public personas. However, Baker had discovered another thing about the individuals associated with the Bold and the Beautiful universe. Secrets seldom remained hidden indefinitely. He took a methodical and patient approach to the case. Instead of jumping to conclusions, he discreetly gathered information, verified dates, and spoke with anyone who might have seen Daphne in her last days. What he found presented an unsettling image. In addition to looking into Ivy's secret, Daphne had been preparing to make it public, possibly at the forthcoming Forrester fashion show, which was anticipated to garner attention from around the world. Everything was altered by this realization. The motivation for a confrontation increased dramatically if Daphne really wanted to expose Ivy in front of the fashion industry. When Baker went over his notes from previous interviews, he saw how defensive Ivy had been whenever Daphne's name was mentioned. A nervous change in tone, a slight hesitation before responding, and a desire to change the topic were all subtle but noticeable. Baker was familiar with those indicators. They were frequently the behavioral fissures that emerged when someone made an excessive effort to control their narrative. But before he could proceed, he needed something tangible. Tensions within the Forrester family were starting to rise at the same time. After learning that the police investigation might go beyond a straightforward accident report, Ridge Forrester convened an urgent meeting with senior staff. Ridge was concerned that the scandal might harm his family's decades-long reputation. Eric Forrester, his father, reminded everyone that the company had previously survived crises and urged patience and openness. Steffi Forrester, however, was much less composed. She was aware of the business ramifications as co-CEO if the story turned into a murder investigation involving a company employee. The fashion launch they had been planning for months could collapse overnight, investors and partners might panic, and the building would be overrun by the media. When Detective Baker asked the building's archive for more security footage, Steffi's worries intensified. Baker thought a different view from the hallway outside the showroom might reveal something significant, even though the majority of the cameras had already been examined. When the video was eventually recovered, it revealed a brief but significant scene. Ivy walking into the showroom just before Daphne was thought to have fallen. The timestamp disproved Ivy's earlier claim that she had left the building well before the collision, even though the camera did not record the actual altercation. Baker watched the video several times, focusing on Ivy's body language as she walked toward the door. Before entering the room, she looked over her shoulder and appeared tense. The detective thought it appeared more like someone getting ready for a serious conversation than a casual visit. Equipped with this fresh proof, Baker went back to Forrester Creations to conduct additional interviews. This time, his presence caused a noticeable wave of unease among the employees. Workers who had initially thought the tragedy was just a straightforward accident now understood that the police had much more serious suspicions. The room was nearly silent when Baker finally asked to talk to Ivy once more. Ivy followed him into a private conference room, trying to look composed, but as she sat down, her hands shook a little. Like their last interview, the conversation started out politely. Baker routinely inquired about Ivy's recent endeavors, her relationship with Daphne, and whether they had ever had a falling out. Ivy maintained that they had only been casual co-workers, and that she did not think anyone would wish to hurt Daphne. However, Baker then moved a printed still image from the security footage to the other side of the table. Ivy was seen in the photo standing outside the showroom door on the evening of the incident. You could see the timestamp in the corner. Ivy's breath caught in her throat for a brief moment. Baker calmly clarified that the video disproved her earlier claim that she had left the building early. Ivy made a hasty recovery, saying she had just forgotten to take a quick look at the showroom before leaving. Baker did not interrupt, but his expression was unwavering and unconvinced. Then he posed the question Ivy had been afraid to ask since the start of the investigation. Had she and Daphne fought that evening?